Hey everyone, it's Sally Spencer Thomas here, and many of you are working parents. And I know for me, being a working parent was tough. It was hard to juggle all of the demands, and you always felt like something was sliding off the table, and that maybe you were missing things with your kids' mental health. And it can be scary when you were worried about your kids and you don't really know what's going on with them because maybe they're not opening up, or maybe they're younger and they don't have the words to put to their experiences, or maybe you're just too out of touch to really fully understand what they're going through. I know I went through all those thoughts with my kids as they were growing up, and it's worrisome. A lot of times, especially when they get into the teenage years, you don't know what you don't know about what's going on in their lives. So, I'm going to spend the next few minutes just talking a little bit about what working parents can do to help their kids through tough times with their mental health. And I also want to just give my empathy and compassion to all of you, because I know when you're up at 3 o'clock in the morning worried, is tonight the night? Or when you're trying to fight through the very challenging mental health system that we have, just trying to advocate for your kid to get into the right services, it weighs on you and it shows up at work. So, my message to all of you is also that you need to give yourself compassion, and you also should advocate with your workplace for some accommodations as you provide this very important caregiving role, and also get to know your workplace resources to support you. You don't have to do this alone. So, it's important as working parents that we figure out what our role is and what we're looking for and how we can best support. And this timely conversation comes during an era when our concern about youth mental health and suicide is increasing. Um, did you know that over the last few years, youth suicide rates rose 62% from 2007 to 2021, according to the CDC? And it continues to be the second leading cause of death for our young people age 10 to 24. So we have to take action. We can't just wait for someone else to fix the problem. We have to participate in the solutions. The last few years have been rough on our youth. There have been a lot of trends in the post pandemic and during the pandemic era that really messed with their coming of age time, their developmental milestones, their socialization to each other, their vision of a future that was viable. I think there's also been a lot of influences of school violence and uh, different types of toxicity in social media, increasing isolation and lack of participation in clubs and organizations and places where community comes together. I think they're all contributing to mental health struggles. And there's a lot of speculation around why suicides are rising, but the fact is that they are. There's a lot of youth that are in pain, feeling um, disconnected, feeling a sense of failure and isolation, maybe undue pressure to succeed athletically or academically or socially, maybe influenced heavily by other peers in their communities, whether that's close to them physically or social media influences that are making them doubt self worth. And while I do think there's a lot of struggle here, I also believe in our youth. I think our youth are really in a position to advocate for mental health like unlike any other generation. I think they get it in a way that's deeper. They see how important it is and they invest when they can into mental health supports, and they can make it a priority. And that is something that we should all be proud of our youth for doing when they're able to do that. Now, there's lots of factors that come together in a perfect storm for anyone's mental health crisis. So it's usually not just one thing, but a bunch of things coming into place in time, like genetics, that they don't even have any control over, environmental stressors like community and school violence, and historical things that are happening, like even climate change and wars that weigh heavy on their consciousness. you know it's new experiences that they're having that maybe aren't going so well, like sexual experiences and failure experiences with sports and dating. Maybe they're being bullied or ostracized in some way for being different. Maybe they have learning disabilities that's setting them apart or setting them back from where they want to be. Maybe they feel a step out from their other peers. I think when it all comes down to it, suicide is driven largely by a sense of being profoundly isolated and feeling that you're a burden to other people or that your life doesn't matter. And when you combine that with capability, the I can part of the equation, then it becomes a deadly trifecta. So I want to because I feel alone, like nobody cares, and I feel like my life doesn't matter, and that maybe even I've become a burden to someone else. And then I also can. I'm not afraid of death, they say, or they behave in reckless ways. Maybe they have access to and knowledge of things that they can kill them, like firearms and medication and other things that make it incredibly dangerous for them in that moment of feeling such desperation. So, what is a parent to do? First, show up. Really show up, like your whole soul show up because your child needs you. And whatever you can do to put judgment aside of how you might have done things or how they got themselves into that situation, um, really listen deeply to the pain. Show up and be present with that. And if you can dip down into any type of your own experience that lines up with theirs, that at least gives them that message that you know a little bit about what they're going through. You could say something like, I don't know exactly what you're going through, but I've been through a similar hard time and I remember it was tough. That really helps them know that you get it at least on some level. Checking in, periodically about how they're coping and how it's going out there and what's happening and what their biggest struggle is or what their biggest celebration is. Check in with them about how they're feeling about with their friends, if they're feeling included and supported. Give them a safe space to talk about what their feelings are and their thoughts without fear that they're going to be judged or punished is really key. Now, here's a hard one for a lot of parents, including me. Really important not to rush in and try to fix things. Ask them what they've thought about doing or, what they'd like to do to see things change. Give them choices of options they could look at or explore together with you rather than telling them, let's go to counseling. Maybe give them some information like a buffet about different types of resources or things that they could do and see what they choose. So it feels like a sense of their own agency, their own empowerment, leading them into a pathway of recovery. At every turn, normalize and validate what they're going through. It's understandable that I could see how that could be hard or frustrating. Many times, people, when they go through these breakups or failure experiences, they go through a difficult time, or even reflect on your own experience. I would imagine that if I went through the tough time that you're going through, I would also struggle. That really helps them know that what they're going through is just a normal part of life. And then what do you do if your child is really struggling? Don't wait. Take action by connecting with them and empowering them to seek help on their own. Um, do some due diligence about what the resources are. A lot of times when you get into these resources, you'll find that there's like 6-month waiting lists, and that's just not going to work. Youth tend to be a little bit more impulsive in their actions around self-harm and suicide and drug use and alcohol use. So the sooner we can get them feeling better, the less likely they're going to engage in some of those destructive behaviors. So do your due diligence, find out what resources are out there that specialize in youth mental health. Get local crisis lines like or specifically for youth, like the Trevor Project, and other types of maybe even peer support that can be offered to young people that might have some similar challenges. Ask your friends what they have gone through to find support for their kids. Often that's a good way to get people in the right direction. And then when you find a mental health professional, you know, quiz them. Ask them how they might support your child. What kind of skills and resources and training do they have? When you get into a place where you're very concerned, maybe your child's talking about death or dying, maybe they've expressed wanting to die by suicide. It's okay to have these direct conversations with them. Again, understand the pain behind the thought and the intent. A lot of people, when they don't really understand that level of pain, chalk these youth expressions up to being manipulative or gestures or cry for help. Usually they are an expression of needing help. And so if you can understand it from that point of view, it's a better way to go than just rejecting them outright. Don't be afraid to ask that direct question. Are you thinking about killing yourself? That can lead you into a more real and honest, open conversation about suicide, where you can really know the depth of that despair and then start to turn the tables into a trajectory of a different pathway forward. Use the crisis hotlines if it feels like this is a place where we need a plan for now. How are we going to get through this moment, this night? Because that's what crisis hotlines do. Call 988, understand how they work. Their job is to help de escalate that situation and create a plan for safety for now, usually involving local resources and other things like your employee assistance program. Employee assistance program often gives counseling sessions for anyone living in your house. Often that's 3 sessions or 7 or even more. Family counseling, individual counseling, whatever you need. So understand what that picture looks like. And then there's just other resources that you can look at that you can empower your youth to use on their own. The crisis text line, if you text the word home to 741-741, youth can use this on the bus. Nobody needs to know what they're texting, and they can do it in the privacy of the back of the class if they need support then. There might also be some community mental health centers, maybe your county mental health center or school counselor that your young person can connect to. And maybe there's some mental health apps online that give them some tools like mood tracking or like ways to help regulate their intensity and change their thought patterns. Maybe the school has some recommendations for what those online tools might be, including some online therapy services. And then really do go dive into that workplace benefit suite of offerings that your employer might have for you, like your employee assistance program, any insurance support you might have for mental health coverage, whether that might be an inpatient alcohol or drug recovery center or intensive outpatient therapy for trauma. You might need some additional financial support to get your youth the kind of treatment they deserve. And then look at the longer tail of support. Usually even a 30 patient intensive addiction recovery treatment is not enough. We need to look at a long-term plan for support and a lifestyle change that doesn't happen just in a couple of sessions or even 30 days. So look at what those long-term supports look like, whether that be peer support groups or long-term outpatient counseling. So in conclusion, as a working parent, it's hard and you need support in helping navigate your youth's mental health. So find a place where you can get support. I know NAMI Family to Family often has support groups and education for families navigating their young person's mental health journey. Stay engaged with your mental health as well as your child's mental health as you're going through this. What you model matters. So if you're taking care of your mental health and you're going to your own counseling or they're seeing you model good mental health practices, that bodes well. When possible and with their permission, help get engage with their treatment process through family therapy and other ways that you can offer support in their exploration of what they need. You're not alone in this journey. There are other parents that are going through the same thing, and together it feels less frightening, especially when you hear other parents helping their children through really tough times. Don't be afraid when you see the signs to lean in and explore what's going on. Know the resources so that you can say, hey, you know what? When I explored this resource, Dr. Mary, she was great. And I really think that she could be a really good resource for us. And don't hesitate to take action. And finally, in closing, provide a sense of hope and empowerment while also not pulling away from the fact that things are hard right now. Say something like, I know right now it feels overwhelming, but I'm here and I'm always here. And I will walk with you as we figure this out together. All right, go check out the resources. And if you need more, visit the website.